Hey guys, Victor here again, coming at you with another update to my Tearlaments deck, which I recently took to the Santa Clara Regionals this past weekend, and I did alright. I ended up in 20th place out of around 380 people, 9 rounds of Swiss, all that good stuff. But I'm going to save that for like the end of the video, like go more into depth with like the actual tournament experience. So for now, let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Now for the monster lineup, we're going to be starting off with our 2 Tearlaments Reinoheart. As the game continues to progress and I continue to learn more things about this deck, I've definitely started to appreciate cards like Reinoheart a lot more, and I definitely am constantly considering if I want to play at least 3 of them, but for now, 2 is still probably the perfect ratio for it, because you do sometimes want to see it, but you also don't, as you do have like a bunch of other normal summons that sometimes do help out your game plan a lot more. But the real power of Reinoheart comes when you're actually able to mill it, because by milling it, you're able to send your spells and traps from your hand to your grave, and then you get to Foolish with your Reinoheart as well as like search off of depending whatever you send. So yeah, like this card just helps you unclog your hands and just does so many things for this deck. So yeah, definitely at least 2 of for like this foreseeable future. And then you also play the 1 of Fusioners, so you play the 1 of Tearlaments Scheiren, the 1 of Tearlaments Havnis, and the 1 of Tearlaments Merrli. You're only allowed to play 1 of each, so we play 1 of each, and they're still really good. And then obviously depending on the matchup, if they get banished, it does hurt a lot, so you want to try and play around those cards if you can. Then after that, we're going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Kashtira, another fantastic addition to the deck, easily the most impactful card just because it's able to mill 3 during your turn or your opponent's turn, and it's also able to mill 2 if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect. And then it just opens up so many more combo lines thanks to it being like level 7, and yeah, it's just a really good card. And then we're not going to be playing any Kashtira cards, mainly because Droll and Lockbird is so prevalent in this format, and this deck already has like a difficult time dealing with cards like Droll, because it basically means that you're going to be turning off all your spells and traps that you're milling into the graveyard. So I decided not to play, anything involving around Kashtira, so no Unicorn, no Fenrir, because if you go with those first and then you get Drolled, your turn essentially ends, or like it's just so much more difficult to build a decent board. So yeah, none of those for this deck profile. Then something that we are still playing is 3 King of the Swamps. Also another fantastic card. You have to play 3 of those just because it gives you access to so many important fusion monsters, such as Rokolos or the Grapha Fusion. Yeah, it's good. Just be aware that, like I said, Droll is very important, or like it's super relevant in this format. So if you can, try to save these for last. Like when you're prioritizing your searches, do not start off with King of the Swamp, because if you get Drolled after you King of the Swamp, that means you're not going to be able to use cards like your Primeval Planet Perlereino or your Trivikarmas and things of that nature. So yeah, try to save this one for last unless you have nothing else to do. So yeah. After that, we're still playing the Ishizu cards. We're playing the 1 Kelbek, the 1 Agido, mill these, mill 5. They get your engine going, just another really good, really fantastic cards. And then for the shufflers, we're only playing the 1 Keldo. I was playing the Mudora, but I opted to cut it just mainly because going second, these cards are pretty worthless because a lot of these decks just set up big negate boards, so they don't really help you like break anything. And then even going first, yeah, you still have like Perley and Super Heavy Samurai to an extent. Like, you can shuffle away their resources, like their Soul Piercers or their quick play spells, and then you can limit what they're able to do. But for like the larger scope of the things, like it's just not as effective. And I was constantly seeing myself actually citing Keldos out just because 1 Keldo is not enough to prevent your opponent from actually being able to go off. So I don't know, the card's still good, just not as great as it was in like the previous format. And then after that, we'll be playing our D Hero package still. So we play the 2 Destiny Hero Malicious. Not much to say. This is literally rank 6 turbo into Beatrice, because it's so important to get to Beatrice to be able to access your entire deck. And Malicious, just, yeah, it's just an insane card. It's dark, so it has synergy with the your Tearlament monsters. It's a level 6, as stated before, so you get easy access to Beatrice. It's just free fodder because it's able to banish and bring itself out. And then when you pair it with cards like Destiny Hero Denier, it's essentially like a 3rd Malicious. So you get the Denier back, and then you get to recycle a Malicious. And just like the fodder that these cards provide you is just insane with how much value you can generate. So yeah. Then we're also playing 1 Diviner of the Herald. I used to play 3, but it's honestly like somewhat of a brick, especially when you open multiples. and this deck doesn't really need to prioritize diviner. So if you draw it, it's great, and if you don't, it's fine because we still have ways to get it out of the graveyard especially. So if you don't draw it, you'd much rather mill it, and if you mill it, great. If it's in your deck, whatever, it's fine. But yeah, just one diviner. And then we're still playing the one Destrudo too, just because this card literally does everything. So it being able to change its levels, so it becomes a level 4 very easily, it becomes a level 3 very easily. You can make link plays, synchro plays, Xyz plays, whatever. Like paying half your life points literally does not matter, just because being able to get a free body on the field is always just so, what's the word? It helps you set up so much advantage that by the point like this card resolves, your opponent is probably just straight up not going to win because of all like the resources that you're able to gather. So yeah, one Destrudo. Then we're also playing the one Blackwing Zephyros. I really like Zephyros in this deck, mainly because of the cool interaction that it has with cards like Tearlaments Kashtira, where you summon the Tearlaments Kashtira, you mill 3, then when Zephyros, you bounce back the Tearlaments Kashtira to be used again during your opponent's turn to mill 3 more cards. And then the fact that it's level 4 also helps you with your rank 4 plays, and just like, yeah, the utility that this card provides you with is just insane. And then that's it for the engine, but we are still playing a couple hand traps. We're playing 3 Droll and Lockbird. Droll is easily the most important card in this format because every deck searches so many cards. Just resolving a Droll can straight up just end an opponent's turn, just like it can straight up end your turn if your opponent resolves a Droll on you. So yeah, you definitely have to play 3 of them in this format. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then I also opted to play 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. I don't know, like the card's good, but I feel like every time I resolved it, my opponent just had way too many resources or just so much gas that it didn't matter. Like if I played against super heavy samurai, right, which I did, I could use ogre on the Wakaushi, but then they typically don't have a monster on field, and that just opens you up to getting punished by something like Cyframe Gear Gamma, which they are playing at 3. And then if you save the Ghost Ogre for the Link 1, you're like, yeah, they -1 themselves by discarding and they don't get the special summon back, but they still have their pendulum scale so they can play out and just still set up like a super strong board. So while this card is good, I just don't think it's that effective, like in general, but I don't know. It still needs more testing. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck. Now, to kick off the spell and trap lineup, we're of course going to be playing 3 of our field spell. So 3 Primeval Planet Perlereino. This card just does everything for the deck because when it's activated, you can search a Tearlaments monster or a Visa Starfrost, but we don't play Visa Starfrost, so obviously we're going to search a Tear monster every time. It boosts all your fusions and Tear monsters by 500 attack, and it's a free pop when you activate like something to shuffle back a Tear monster or from your deck or into your deck or extra deck. So yeah, it does everything for this deck. And then after that, we're also going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Scream. I'm constantly going back on if I want to play 1 to 3 just because this card is sometimes really good and sometimes it's not that great. But since Droll and Lockbird is super prevalent in this format, I feel like you needed something to be able to actually play on your opponent's turn when you get Drolled. And Scream pretty much does that because as long as you have a face-up tier monster, if a monster is no more special summon, so whether if you perform the summon or your opponent performs the summon, you're going to be able to mill 3 cards and just try and get your engine going that way, whether it's your turn or your opponent's turn. So yeah, just being able to do that and just activate a Scream, even if you get like if your opening hand's pretty weak, right? You just have Reinoheart and Scream, you can activate the Scream, normal the Rhino, mill 3. If you don't hit anything and they like stop your Reinoheart, it's fine. You'll just try again on your opponent's turn, and yeah, basically this card just instantly becomes a threat, and I definitely think 3 is the way to go, especially with Droll and Lockbird being in this format. And then that's it for the 3 ofs, and we just play a bunch of 1 of spells now. So we're gonna start off with the 1 Terraforming. And I know this might seem blasphemous, but I'm honestly considering just cutting Terraforming because of the fact that Droll and Lockbird is in this format. And my reasoning for that is there are a lot of times throughout this tournament where I activate Terraforming, I get Drolled, and like, great, I have the planet, but I can't activate it and I can't do anything because I can't search with it. So I feel like just cutting out cards like this and just getting straight into like, the activating the planet itself is a lot more valuable. Obviously, if you decide to play something like Cyframe Gear Gamma, then Terraforming is still a fantastic card because when they Droll you, you just Gamma and then you just, plus hella hard. But without the Gamma, I don't think this card is actually worth playing at this moment. But that's just me. If you still like it, by all means, still play it. And then we're still playing the one of Polymerization. Also another card that I found really underwhelming this format, or in this event specifically, because yeah, it helps you thin out your deck with King of the Swamp, but I don't think I ever used this to actually fusion summon once. The one time I actually activated Polymerization was just to bait out a dimensional barrier that I knew my opponent had because they were playing a trap deck. But yeah, like I don't know. And like the most use I guess out of this was also mainly as like discard fodder. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I like the card, but it just does not come up that often. So I might consider cutting it if I'm being honest and just playing 3 King of the Swamp, but we'll see. Then after that, we play the 1 Tearlaments Grief. Now this card is fantastic and it definitely overperformed this weekend as it's essentially emergency teleport because it special summons any tier monster from your deck, and then even if you have no face-up monsters on the field, it's okay because whatever you summon off of this card will still meet the requirements of having to send. So if you summon, say, like a Tearlaments Reinoheart, you just send the Tearlaments Reinoheart after you summon it, and then you'll activate your Reinoheart's graveyard effect to come back, and then, you know, just get your engine going that way. And same thing with you can do with like Tearlaments Kashtira, right? You special the Kashtira, send it to grave. You don't get the mill 3, but you will be able to get the mill 2. So if you prioritize the milling over like, you know, anything else, it's definitely the way to go. And there's so many cool uses with this card. But the number one thing that I used it for was, you know, to add back my remove trap cards. So you're typically going to banish your sullieks or your metanoises or whatever pretty early on in the game. So by the time you're able to mill Tearlaments Grief, you're going to be able to get your cards back and just continually grow your resources to help outgrind your opponent. So yeah, I just really enjoy this card, and I think it's such a cool addition to the deck. And then after that, we're playing the 1 Foolish Burial. Not much to say. You activate Foolish and you send whatever you need, whether it's like a Reinoheart or an Ashizu monster, whatever. It's just send 1 card in grave and then pop off. And then I also decided just to play 1 Foolish Burial Goods. I used to play multiples, but because Droll is so impactful, that means if you start this, you're not going to be able to, you know, use your planets and all that other things of those natures if you do end up getting Drolled, which did happen to me a lot, where I'd always start with Foolish Burial Goods, I'd send sulliek, and then just add my tier cash, and then I get Drolled, and like, okay, cool, so I'm not activating planet for the rest of this turn. But, you know, it's still a good card, just I don't think it's worth playing more than 1 at the moment. And then that's it for the spells, but for the traps, we're playing 2 sullieks. You're going to be your main method to negate monster effects, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you're able to pretty much just search any tier monster. So yeah, just fantastic card. And then we're also playing the 1 of Metanoise, which I used a lot during this regional, because just being able to book a Moon a monster, then Foolish a tier card or a tier monster is honestly invaluable, because it helps get your engine going for when like you do get hit by cards like Droll and Lockbird. And then just being able to book a Moon a monster, even though like Book a Moon isn't as strong thanks to Super Heavy Samurai, you know, and Perlereino being able to set up multiple monsters on the field pretty easily. You know, just slowing down your opponent enough to where the rest of your monsters are able to shut them down is, you know, pretty cool. And then for the final card, we're playing the 1 Trivikarma. It's still a really good card because what it does, if you draw it, it's a break, but that's fine because you have ways to discard it. But what you do is you banish it, and then you add any spell and trap that has Visa Starfrost in its text from your deck to your hand. And lucky for us, every single one of our spells and traps has Visa Starfrost. So, well, every one of our Tearlaments spell and traps has Visa Starfrost in its text. So you're able to add your planets, your Scream, your sullieks, your Metanoise, your Tearlaments Grief, whatever. All those cards addable. So yeah, definitely just 1. I would not recommend more than 1. And with that, that's the main deck, 40 cards like always. And now we can finally move on to the extra deck portion. Now for the extra deck, we're going to be starting off with our Xyz. So we're playing 1 Time Thief Redoer. Really cool card because it's basically continuously stealing your opponent's resources to help you build your own. And yeah, it does so much for the deck, because a lot of the times you're going to have like a Tearlaments Scheiren on field and you're going to need to have some way to get rid of it with an effect. So Redoer is that card. You just overlay, and then because it detaches for an effect, you just attach the Scheiren, and then it'll trigger and shuffle and fusion, whatever. And then there were a lot of times over the weekend where I made this and I was able to steal key cards like Pot of Extravagance or just some kind of trap. So I'd constantly be able to draw 1, bounce a monster, you know, things of that nature. And yeah, this card's just insane. And then we're also playing 1 Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. The entire deck literally revolves around Beatrice being summoned in order to get you to access to any single card in this deck, because that's literally what it does. If you need a King of the Swamp to fusion summon, you can send King of the Swamp. If you want to search for your planet, you send the Trivikarma. If you just want to search a monster, but you already have or already used your field spell, you can send a sulliek. If you want to get back a banished spawn trap, you send your Grief. If you just want to combo off and send a monster, you can send like Destrudo, zephyros, Denier. So many cards that you can have access to thanks to Beatrice being in this deck. Like, I cannot overstate how important Beatrice is to this deck. And that's it for the Xyz. I don't play cards like Zeus just because with these two specific Xyz, you never really have enough materials for Zeus to make an impact, and I'd much rather just have something like Redor, for example, on the field constantly floating and getting me resources as opposed to Zeus. So, and then with Beatrice, if you make Beatrice, by the time it's your turn, Beatrice won't have any materials anyway, so the Zeus is literally ineffective. So yeah, I don't play those. And then when it comes to something like Baguska, while Baguska is good, its main reason to play it would be against Kashtira, right? Because you get shifted, you're like, cool, you just make Baguska, pass, and then wait a turn. But I don't know, every time I played against Kashtira and I made Baguska, they'd just summon their Kashtira Scareclaw and run it over, making it literally useless, and then they'd still combo into a Rise Heart, making my board worthless. So yeah, I didn't really feel the need to play either of those two. I feel like this is just more than enough when it comes to Xyz monsters. And then we can finally move on to the synchro portion. I still play one FA Dawn Dragster. Thanks to Destrudo, you're going to be able to make this card literally whenever you want. And having a free Spawn Trap Negate is huge because it helps, you know, when you combine it with your cards like your Tearlaments Rokolos or just other things of that nature, it's helping you to stop cards like Evenly Matched, Lightning Storm, Raigeki, any powerful, I don't know, one-of spells. Just, yeah, this card, setting up a negate is just invaluable to this deck. And for the same reason, we play one Baron Defleur. Baron, another fantastic card. It's really easy to make in this deck thanks to the fact that Diviner makes itself a level 6, so you can combine that with a level 4 to make Baron. Or if you have a Destrudo engrave, all you have to do is target one of your level 4s. So you have like Reinoheart, Zephyros, Scheiren, and then you synchro summon using your Tearlaments Kashtira, which is really easy to get both on the field at the same time. And then you just make Baron, and then much like Dawn Dragster, the one negate that it provides you is invaluable. Plus, it has the added benefit of being able to destroy cards, and then during the standby phase, it can change it to something else by summoning a monster from your graveyard by returning it. So, yeah, just a really strong card. And then we played one more synchro monster, being Chaos Angel. I don't have it anymore because I gave it back to the person who let me borrow it. But the theory behind Chaos Angel was, if I got hit by Dimensional Barrier, I wanted something that I could summon very easily to still play and try to OTK my opponent. The one time that I did get hit by D-Barrier, I made the Chaos Angel, but I still lost because it just ended up getting compulsed. So, you know, in theory, it was good, but in practice, it just underperformed all weekend. I'm probably going to play something like Guardian Chimera because that's what I originally ended up cutting for this, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's okay, but I think Guardian Chimera will come up a lot more than Chaos Angel. And I just wanted to try something out as we get ready for Nationals, you know? And then that's it for the synchros. And then we can move on to the links. So we're playing the one Barricade board blocker. This is going to be one of our main methods we use to discard any potential breaks from our hands. So if we have Trivikarma or like any of the Ishizu Millers, Barricade board blockers is fantastic because it allows us to get rid of them. As its effect is, we discard a card, and then during the end phase, we can add a continuous spell or a field spell from our grave to our hand. So that means we get rid of a brick, and then during the end phase, we can add back our planet or our Tearlaments Scream. And typically what I like to add with this is Tearlaments Scream, just because if you add the Scream, that means that you will 100% have some kind of fodder for if you end up milling Reinoheart, which does happen very often. And then when you send the Reinoheart and you special summon it, you send the Scream, and then in turn that searches you for another trap. And you know, just like little plays like that help you go a long way in maintaining resources. And then after that, we're playing the one Cross Sheep. This card's fantastic because what it does is, well, it has like multiple effects, but the only one we care about is the fusion effect, because if it points to a fusion monster and you special summon a monster to a zone this card points to, you get it's basically a free reborn. And this is going to be the main method that we use in order to bring back key cards like our Diviner of the Heralds or our Tearlaments Reinoheart, because you go Cross Sheep, and it's typically pointed to like a Rokolos or a Rapha Fusion. Then activate, bring back your Reinoheart or your Diviner of the Herald. Diviner's effect will make you send a Agido or a Kelbek to mill 5 more, and Reinoheart will send a specific tier monster, depending on if you want to perform another fusion summon, or you know, just mill more if you send like tier cash. So yeah, card's really cool and really like it just helps you extend your play so much farther than would normally be possible. And then for the final link, we play one Underworld Chaos or one Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This is mainly just there for monsters that are very difficult for us to out. So you have like the Link 3 Tier Cash or the Link 3 Scareclaw monster that becomes like unaffected with like all these other monsters and constantly changes everything in defense. You have boss monsters such as like the Arrival at Ignister or whatever, and just being able to link that off and not have to worry about it is just it's such as like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's I guess it's just like a major relief that you have an easy way to out it. So yeah, I definitely really like the one Underworld Goddess. And then after that, we just play a bunch of fusions. So you have the Mudragon, the Garura, and the Dragostapelia. There are a lot of times where you just need to shuffle cards back, and these cards are literally the perfect targets for that. And on the off chance you want to play Super Poly, these are also the perfect targets for Super Polymerization to be effective. But I wouldn't really recommend it for this format just because all the decks have are so varied in like the types and attributes they play, so it's not really worth it. But it's still just really nice to have. And then after that, you play the one Destiny Hero Dangerous. Much like Beatrice, the entire deck pretty much revolves around Dangerous because what it does is you discard a card, so whether it's like Trivikarma or Agido, Kelbek, whatever, and then it foolishes a Destiny Hero monster. So you discard your brick and then you send malicious, and then your brick will probably activate at some point. And then with the malicious, you just banish it, special summon another one, then you overlay for Beatrice, and boom, you have access to your entire deck. So yeah, like this combo is so deadly, and it's so good. But yeah, like I said, the entire deck literally revolves around getting to Dangerous as soon as possible to give you access to Beatrice. And yeah, I just love this card. And then after that, we're going to be playing our King of the Swamp fusions. So we have the 1-up Grapha. It's just a good card. It changes any monster effect or like regular normal spell or trap card effect into your opponent discards a card. So, you know, it helps you just get rid of bricks, or helps you trigger key card effects. Like if you have like a Tearlaments Merrli in your hand, right, that you weren't able to summon during your first turn, you can send the Merrli and then fusion summon and do things like that. And then you have the one Tearlaments Rokolos, who negates any effect that activates that would special summon a monster. So, you know, really good card. And then for the final one, you have the Tearlaments Kaleidoheart, who shuffles away a monster when it's special summoned, or if a, I believe an Aqua monster gets shuffled into the deck. So that's literally all your normal tier monsters. So yeah, that's the 15 cards that we play in the extra deck. I wouldn't really change anything else besides the Chaos Angel. Maybe play Guardian Chimera instead, but there's still a lot of time to change, and we'll see once we get closer to national season if I want to make like any key changes. But for now, I think it's fine as is. And with that, that's the extra deck, like I stated. And I'm going to do something different. I'm actually going to cover the side deck really quickly too. So for the side deck, I literally only use like half of these cards because this format is way too diverse to be able to, you know, pinpoint what you're going to be accurately playing against. So with that, we're going to be starting off with the Bestials. So I decided to play 2 Bestial Magnamuts, 1 Bestial Druisworm, and 1 Bestial Baldrake. I mainly put these in here for 2 reasons. They're really good against decks like Mathmech and Branded, which I did not play against all weekend, even though they were there and they were like very highly represented. And the fact that they're level 6 also helps you combo into cards like Beatrice a lot more easily. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably just going to stop respecting Mathmech because it's honestly not that hard of a matchup anyways. Same with Branded. And then I'm going to cut these for something else, but time will tell, you know. But yeah, I just played those 4. And then I also played 2 Radiant, the multi-dimensional Kaijus. Another fantastic card. If you want to play this over, or if you want to play Yamiseo, either one is fine. It literally does not matter. I just prefer Radiant because it's able to, you know, there are a lot of times where I mill a bunch of cards and I mill a shuffler with a bunch of Darks Engraved but no King of the Swamp, and I'm forced to fusion summon into something like Mudragon, but I don't want to shuffle, you know, like my key monsters, whether it be like Zephyros or Destrudo. I'd much rather have something like a Radiant, which I can do, like, you know, recycle a lot more easily. So yeah, I just decided to do that. But if you want to make, you know, like play Yamiseo instead, that's also fine because it does help you summon Kaleidoheart a lot more easily. And then the other monster that I played was 1 Volcanic Scattershot. Now, with every tournament going into 45 minutes, I'm definitely just cutting this card because I didn't go into time a single round, even though like a lot of these decks are super heavy, like combo based. But yeah, I don't know. Going forward, I'm just going to cut this because 45 minutes is more than enough time to play without going at the time. And then that's it for the monsters. But for the spells, I played 2 Xyz Encore. So this was for Perley and to a lesser extent Kashtira. I definitely use this against Kashtira a lot just because being able to detach all their materials while they have like an Arise Heart up, right? And then bounce the Arise Heart is really good because since their materials are banished, that means they won't be able to special summon anything. And it's basically just a free Arise Heart removal, and they can't even respond to it because they can't activate anything in response to Xyz Encore. And I really enjoyed this card all weekend. It's easily one of the better ones that I played. We also played 3 Cosmic Cyclone for trap decks and any potential runic players still around. I ended up playing against 2 Labyrinths, so these cards were really good against them, especially to get rid of key floodgates like Skill Drain. But like I said, since this tournament was so varied, I did not play against a single runic deck. But it's always nice to have the option because you don't want to be caught with like your pants down or whatever. And then for the final 3 slots, I opted for 3-dimensional barrier. I only sided this in once against Super Heavy Samurai. I didn't draw it and I lost. But you know, if you play against like a branded player or even like Super Heavy Samurai, if you do end up drawing this, and even to like a lesser extent Perley, right? Because you can just call Xyz and that deck can't play. You can straight up just win the game sometimes. But unfortunately, it just never came up for me. But I definitely still think you should be playing at least 3 of these, just because it's so good in so many matchups. And with that, that's the side deck. And now, with the entire deck covered, we can finally move on to the tournament report. Okay, so as stated earlier, I played 9 rounds of Swiss at the Santa Clara Regionals this past weekend. We had a total of 380 players, which is pretty small for like a Northern California YCS, as we tend to get like around 500 on average. But you know, it's fine. 380 players is still really good, as you know, being able to play 9 rounds of Swiss is a lot bigger than a lot of other regionals that you'll see across the country. And as far as like the decks went, I played against like 2 Super Heavy Samurais, 2 Labyrinths, 2 Scareclaw Kashtiras, 1 regular Kashtira, and 2 Rickason Avalon. So no branded for me personally, no Mathmech, no Perley, and those are the 3 decks that I actually prepared the most for. Most of the stuff that I prepared for or that I played against is pretty much just like off my radar. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you see it, I was, you know, like familiar enough with the stuff to be able to actually play the game. When it comes to die rolls, of the 9 rounds, I only won die roll twice. Once against the Kashtira player, and then one against the Rickason Avalon player. But when it came to like the Kashtira player, I bricked. My only play was activate Foolish Burial, and I got ashed, so I got OTK'd instantly. So in essence, I basically only won 1 die roll. But you know, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes you'll win all the die rolls, sometimes you win none of the die rolls, and unfortunately for me, I won none of the die rolls, but except for 1. When it came to like what I actually won against, the only decks that I didn't beat were my round 1 opponent, who played Super Heavy Samurai with like a Pendulum Draco Slayer engine. So like game 1, I could have broke his board, but because it wasn't honestly that threatening until I get hit by an Amorphage Sloth, and I had no way to run it over because he had like the Fusion Pendulum guy that protects it from battle, and then he had multiple negates. I was like, well, I guess we're going next, and then I bricked game 2, as is tradition, because I cannot win round 1 for the life of me. And then my other loss came in round 8, where I played against Rickason Avalon. You know, if you lose the die roll to Rickason Avalon, you're just straight up not going to win, because that deck is just way too impressive. Yeah, so that's how I went. Like, he got game 1, I got game 2, and then he got game 3. And but yeah, I ended up beating everything. So I beat both Labyrinth players, even though they won the die roll. I beat both Scareclaw Kashtira players. I beat one of the Rickason Avalons. I beat Kashtira, which is like a super hard matchup for me. And I finished 7-2. I ended up in 20th place. And it's not a top. It's only 20th place at a regional. If it's not top 8, it doesn't matter. But I was able to play Gatekeeper to some, you know, which is always a plus for me. And I was able to get more Worlds points, even though at this point in the stage race, or the race for the Worlds points, it doesn't really matter because everyone's pretty much locked in for the most part. But yeah, overall, it was a really fun experience. I was able to get some really valuable information for like nationals, because I was still super unfamiliar with this format when I started playing. So I'm going to try to get some more like, you know, experience in that way. And for now, that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile and the small recap. And if you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!